So the key concept I'm going to go over first is bring global marketing tactics down to the local level. So here is the reality of what I learned. The cleaning industry and most local businesses in general are at least 3 years behind in terms of digital marketing. So if you're not taking advantage of this fact, you're leaving a ton of money on the table. Now, when I was experimenting with what to do, I was trying blogging, e-commerce, drop shipping, everything. At that point, you're competing against the world, meaning you need to be very on top of your marketing tactics in order to beat the competition because you're competing against everyone. With the local market, you're only competing against your local market, and normally they don't know what they're doing in terms of digital marketing. So this is a big takeaway. Just make sure your digital marketing is on point because that's how you're going to dominate the local market. A few stats to throw your way. Almost half of small businesses don't even have a website. And this is as of 2017, so not too long ago. Small businesses tend to spend a lot of their money on traditional marketing like coupon mailers and things like that. Even franchises, competitor franchises spend a large portion of their budgets on mailers, physical mailers. And look, if it has a positive return on investment, that's fine. That works. My point is a lot of small businesses, even the very professional ones like franchises, aren't doing that much in digital marketing. So if you could level up what you're doing, you're going to absolutely crush the competition. Here's a couple examples of just some local competition in LA that we deal with. In comparison, here's our website. And I'm not saying it's the best website in the world, but there's some basic things we do to dominate the local market, which is we have web capture or website conversion funnels. There's the UI is optimized constantly. There's online booking. There's online chat. On the marketing perspective, we do basic stuff, SEO, AdWords, social media. We have proper email funnels. Just getting the basics set up correctly is going to get you above and beyond what many local companies are doing. And I know this isn't specific to global, but my whole point in bringing this up is that if you bring global tactics down to the local level, you're going to absolutely crush the competition. And marketing is one of those areas where you can make a big ROI by doing this. Cool. Now that we're on that, I want to talk a bit about how to build your global team and make your competitive advantage. And this part's really cool. So I'm going to spend a little bit of an extended time on this concept here. So the core concept we've discussed so far is be a big fish in a small pond. Compete against a local market instead of the entire world. When I was doing all these different side hustles, again, I was competing against the entire world. The reality is you don't need to compete against the entire world to make a lot of money. You really don't. You compete against your local market and still make a lot of money. So might as well be a big fish in a small pond and just crush that small pond. But here's the strategy. Use the entire world to compete against your local market. This gives you an unfair advantage. If you have a talent pool from around the world and you bring that to a small local market, you're going to crush the competition because no one else is able to do that. So that's where this becomes very, very powerful, where you could actually build a global team and then bring it to a local market. I'll talk a bit about our company in California and how we're set up. So I think we're across 6 countries at this point. A lot of it's in Latin America. We have a team in South Africa. We have one person in India. Here's a few pictures of our team. There are specific advantages and disadvantages depending on where in the world you're going to go if you decide to build a remote team. So a lot of the cleaners that we end up working with are Hispanic. So we tend to find operations team members in Latin America where there's a Spanish-speaking they all speak Spanish, and there's a big cultural fit with the cleaners. Also, what I found, again, you can't steer a parked car. Once you get into this, you know what's available. I found that there's a lot of call centers in Latin America, specifically Honduras, and these support centers have already trained a talent pool. So all we're doing is looking at who comes from these companies and working with them. There's also weaker currency in Honduras, meaning we get a cost-efficient labor force. The same is true of other places we find team members in, Mexico, Panama, a lot of different places. You could easily find an expat workforce, meaning people who've come from the US or Canada and are living abroad. And they're extremely qualified, US educated, but they're just living abroad. So you could also find that labor pool. We also have a team in South Africa. One thing about Americans, since we service Americans, it's a California-based company. They love accents, and specifically the South African accent sounds kind of British sounding. So it's so many Americans say, "Are you from Australia?" But it's kind of a cool thing to be able to use South Africa in order to for a sales team to talk to our American customers. The South African currency is technically junk status, so we pay the workers there in US dollars. They love the stability of it as well. I believe South Africa is also an untapped talent pool. It's not as popular to outsource there versus Southeast Asia, for example, where the Philippines is a very popular area. So it's also an untapped pool. You also might discover some side advantages. So I don't know if you see on the bottom left, the South Africa team wanted to go visit them. They took me to pet some lions, which was kind of scary. I peed my pants a little bit. They took me to go see elephants. This is some of the team in South Africa when I went to go visit them. It's actually a group of Jehovah's Witnesses in the mountains in this small town in South Africa, which is so random. If you think about it, though, Jehovah's Witnesses spend 2 years doing door-to-door sales. They already come trained in sales. It's just a great pool and also fantastic people, especially my team over there. It's funny. I was actually walking around in their town, and a very small town, and random people are like, "Hey, like you're Neel, the cleaning company." And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, that's me." And I guess the word got around that a group of people in the town were working remotely for a cleaning company based in California. And so people just kind of recognized me, and it's funny. I'm popular in a small mountain town in South Africa. Let's put it that way. There's also downsides of remote team members in different countries. Here's an example of Pevi, who's one of our team members in Honduras. She said, "Neel, there's a military tank in front of my house. This is so inconvenient right now. I need to get my kids and get dressed ASAP. I'm so worried about this ticket." So there was a military coup going on at the same time of operations. So Pevi had to go. Things you normally would not think you have to deal with, we had to deal with. You also have to consider there's different work cultures in different countries in terms of work ethic or just what is normal. Managing time zones for a business. The easy answer to that is we have our time zones within Los Angeles and would only find team members who are able to comfortably work in those time zones. So someone's constantly on the road and going, we likely would not work with them, but someone who's stationary in a time zone which works would work with them. You always have to think about Wi-Fi and power issues, meaning for any team members, you always have to ask, do they have a backup power source? Again, things you might not think of in the US or Canada, but you'd have to think about in some countries.